Thank you for joining me on this journey today, wherever you are. That's a sunny, bright day, or cloudy and stormy, cold and wet, or nice, crisp and clean. Either way, consider this as 820 for you today. Today's topic is called The Mountains Are Calling. About maybe years ago, I tend to spend a lot of time in this space called Michael's. Had a lot of hobby stuff and paints and things to build when you're being creative for t-shirts or anything artistic or paintings or just creating things with your hands. And some things are already pre-made for you. I spend a lot of time in that kind of store just getting some ideas for other things that I do in my wild imaginations for new ideas or things that come to me and trying to create them and bring them into life. But even in that place many years ago, I didn't need it, but I was just perusing the aisles and came across this bracelet, and it said something that I hadn't thought about, but the statement was on that bracelet, "The mountains are calling and I must go." I bought it, wore it for a while, then I made it into a pin, a lapel pin, and then a hat pin. I never thought about it after that. I just kept it. I liked the statement. It wasn't until many years ago that I realized my penchant or fascination for mountains. Interesting. Even maybe somewhat tangentially related to my experiences in history, I served in a unit in the U.S. Army called the 10th Mountain Division. Again, great time, great soldiers, great leaders in the organization. But again, hadn't thought about that aspect of my life that maybe was one of those small echoes that continues to resonate, reverberate, I think it's the word, into today about mountains. And interestingly, I was talking to a gentleman who had interest in my book and this podcast series. He mentioned an author, a very famous author, Jack Kerouac. He mentioned something to me that I hadn't heard about, but he was mentioning something that Mr. Kerouac wrote, and he was citing about Mr. Kerouac saying mountains are nature's testimony of resilience. Now, of course, when he said that, like, oh, whoa, resilience. I wrote about that, but that statement just hit me softly hard, but firm, like mountains are nature's testimony of resilience. And then he said, the stranger in my car was mentioning to me, those mountains are also a representation of the natural Buddha. Wow. So he said those two things to me. It's like, that's interesting. That given me my fascination for mountains is still strong. But again, even those little whispers, those little random conversations that you might have with someone that you don't even know, but in a conversation, just a open flowing conversation, these things that drop out in front of you. And of course, like I said before, you don't create these conversations. They come to you like thoughts. You have to decide to choose them from your level of self-discovery or understanding of yourself, your attention, and then choose those and then work with those. So when he said this to me about the mountains as nature's testimony of resilience and also representing a natural Buddha, made me think about this statement for myself, calling it a Zen mountain, or mountain of Zen, or mountains of Zen. And to me, that conversation with this guy gave me a different view of the Stoic statements out there. I mentioned to you one guy I follow electronically, Mr. Ryan Holiday, and that maybe just those statements about Marcus Aurelius and Greek philosophies, but things that are poignant and significant to me today that I'm passing on to you. So even given that confirmation of my study of Stoicism and what this gentleman said about mountains as testimonies, I was thinking about this. When mountains talk, if they could talk, how would they talk? I had a friend of mine also, Larry, who I've known for over 30 years. He'd always tell me this. Again, just a man who's just full of wisdom and insight. But he would say this to me. He would say, 2 mountains never meet, but 2 human beings will always cross paths. Thank you again, Brother Larry. Thanks, brother. So the obstacles, the mountains, big or small, virtual, mental, but they are the way for us to go through, crest, continue over to the next mountain, to the next plain, to the next valley, to the next mountain. You must go if those mountains call you, but you must go. Ask no question and die on that mountain with no question. Again, I'm taking that spin on Mr. Thomas' timeless statements to me about purpose. If you have the intention to proceed and progress and climb on your journey, you must go. Of course, once you get to a mountain, or if you start somehow at the top of that mountain, you can go straight downhill. That's pretty easy. Always your choice, always your consequence. But if you can, see yourself through, up, and over the summit of this month, of this mountain right now. And then on to the next one. Maybe that's why I love music. The sound with its peaks and valleys, its naturals, its sharps, its flats, its silences. Even your heartbeat has those characteristics. Think about it. Look at your ECG or EKG, those mountains and peaks and valleys and those flat spots in your heartbeat. Kind of similar and analogous to these mountains that we must go to because they are calling. Now, hopefully, in the ECG or EKG example, hopefully you won't have very few flat spots in your heartbeat. We don't want too many of those. I've had a couple of those. Many heart attacks, but hey, things you gotta do. But while we live and climb and crest and go down and over those mountains, we'll stay clear that those mountains, your mountains, are calling you, and you must go. Thanks again. Stay present, stay current, stay productive, and it'll always be